Marcus, a black taxi driver, starts his day like any other, driving through the busy streets of the city. It's just another routine ride, another set of passengers to pick up. His phone buzzes, and a new ride request pops up. He heads towards the location, unaware that this ride will change everything. He arrives at a corporate building, and as he parks his taxi, a middle-aged white businessman, Richard, steps out. As soon as Richard sees Marcus behind the wheel, he pauses, a brief moment of hesitation. His eyes narrow slightly, scanning Marcus with a look that feels both judgmental and uneasy. Richard's expression betrays him, a mix of subtle disgust and superiority. He takes a moment, then opens the door and climbs in, his face clearly uncomfortable. As Richard settles into the back seat, he mutters under his breath, barely audible, but loud enough for Marcus to hear. Richard, muttering, "Didn't expect this." The engine hums softly as Marcus drives, the steady rhythm of the road comforting him in his usual routine. But in the back seat, Richard begins to speak, slowly, almost casually, as if testing the waters. "Driving taxis must be tough. I guess not everyone has the brains for real business." Marcus doesn't flinch. His eyes stay on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. He doesn't engage with the comment. Instead, he simply glances at the rearview mirror, meeting Richard's eyes for just a second before looking away again. Richard shifts in his seat, sensing Marcus's silence but continuing with his condescending tone. "I bet you deal with all kinds of troublemakers. Must be exhausting." The implication hangs in the air. Marcus's expression remains unchanged, calm and composed. It's as if he's heard these words 1,000 times before. Richard seems to grow more comfortable, the power dynamic in his mind growing stronger as he imagines himself above Marcus. With a sense of satisfaction, Richard leans back in the seat. "I hope you don't get into any of those bad habits." The words drip with judgment, clearly referring to negative stereotypes associated with black people. Marcus doesn't respond. His eyes stay fixed on the road ahead, but there's a subtle tension in his posture. He understands what Richard is implying, yet he says nothing. His silence speaks louder than any response could. Richard, on the other hand, seems pleased with himself. His belief in his superiority grows, and he seems to relish in the fact that Marcus, the black taxi driver, is nothing more than someone he can look down on. Marcus keeps his calm, his professionalism intact, refusing to let the weight of Richard's words break him. The ride continues, the city skyline blurring by as Marcus drives in silence, while Richard seems to grow more comfortable in his seat. The tension between them simmers beneath the surface, but Richard, clearly enjoying his own company, decides to brag about his day. "I'm heading to a big meeting. There's this investor who's thinking about buying my business. That guy has money, the kind people like you only dream of." His words are laced with the same superiority, a thinly veiled insult. But it's clear that he's not expecting any kind of response. Richard is so caught up in his own world that he doesn't even notice Marcus's subtle reaction. Marcus gives a small smile, barely a twitch of his lips. He doesn't say a word, just keeps his eyes on the road. The silence hangs heavy in the air. He doesn't need to respond. He knows that the moment will come when the truth is revealed. For the audience, there's a subtle hint that not everything is as it seems. As Richard rambles on, a flash of something catches the light on the dashboard, a glimpse of an expensive watch, or perhaps a sleek, polished pen, something that hints Marcus is no ordinary taxi driver. It's a detail, easy to miss, but it speaks volumes about Marcus's hidden life. Richard remains unaware, lost in his bragging, convinced that he's the one in control of the situation, while Marcus quietly listens. As the taxi reaches its destination, Richard's confidence seems to swell even more. The building he's about to enter is a towering symbol of success. His business meeting is going to be the deal of a lifetime. He's almost smug as he checks his watch, eager to walk into the boardroom and claim his victory. The taxi comes to a stop, and Richard quickly opens the door, stepping out with a self-assured swagger as if the world is at his feet. His mind is already on his meeting, imagining the massive deal he's about to close. He doesn't even glance back at Marcus. As Richard strides toward the entrance, Marcus parks the taxi in the nearby lot. Without any rush, he steps out, his posture straight and confident. He adjusts his jacket, walking toward the building with the same purpose in his stride. Richard, already inside the lobby, pauses for a moment as he hears footsteps behind him. Something feels off. He turns back and his eyes lock onto Marcus. For a brief second, his expression is blank. Then it slowly morphs into shock. His jaw tightens, eyes widen. He stares as Marcus confidently walks past the lobby, heading toward the elevator bank. Richard's heart skips a beat. He stumbles a bit, almost tripping on his own feet. The realization creeps over him like a cold wave. Marcus, the black taxi driver, is walking toward the same floor he was just heading to, the same boardroom he was about to enter for his business meeting. Marcus isn't just a taxi driver, he's the investor Richard was about to meet. Inside the sleek modern boardroom, Marcus walks in with an air of calm authority, his every step measured and purposeful. He doesn't rush. He's not here to prove anything. He sits down at the head of the table like someone who belongs in this world completely at ease. Richard walks in behind him, but there's a visible shift in his confidence. He's no longer strutting. His shoulders are tense, his steps hesitant. As he sits down across from Marcus, a cold sweat forms on his forehead. He's lost his earlier arrogance, his smugness completely replaced by nervousness. He doesn't know what to say. His mind is racing, but no words come. The humiliation of the moment is starting to settle in. Marcus, calm as ever, picks up a file from the desk in front of him. As he flips through it, he reviews the analysis of Richard's company, numbers, projections, opportunities, and then he finally looks up. His gaze is steady, direct, and piercing. With a slight, almost imperceptible smile, Marcus speaks. "I believe you were just telling me how people like me don't have the brains for real business?" The words hit Richard like a slap. He freezes, his mind scrambling for something to say, but it's as if his voice has been stolen. Marcus leans back slightly in his chair, his presence commanding the room. "Tell me, Richard, why should someone like me invest in someone like you?" The room falls into a thick silence. Richard's face turns red with embarrassment. He's at a loss for words, and his earlier bravado has completely evaporated. The guilt, the realization of his mistake, floods through him. Marcus pauses for a moment, allowing the weight of his words to settle in. Then he stands up slowly, his movements deliberate. As he begins to walk toward the door, he turns back one last time to deliver a final, powerful blow. "I don't invest in people with small minds." Gee. With that, Marcus exits the room, leaving Richard humiliated and speechless. The sound of the door clicking shut behind him echoes in the now stifling room, a reminder of the lesson Richard just learned. The deal is over. Richard's business opportunity is gone, slipping through his fingers like sand. The investor he thought would be his savior has decided to look elsewhere, deciding not to move forward with the deal. In the boardroom, Richard sits alone now. The weight of regret is heavy in the air around him. He stares blankly at the table, the embarrassment still fresh on his face. His thoughts race, but there's no escaping the truth. His prejudice cost him the deal, and Marcus, the man he looked down on, walked away with everything. Richard's world has come crashing down, all because of the assumptions he made. Meanwhile, outside, Marcus walks back to his taxi. His steps are confident, composed, as if nothing extraordinary has happened. The city hums around him, life going on as usual. There's no hint of stress on his face, no rush in his walk. He's at peace, knowing that he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. As Marcus reaches his taxi, he opens the door, takes a moment to glance at the city before he gets in, and then drives off. Never judge a man by the job he does. You never know when karma will come knocking. The car drives off into the horizon, leaving Richard's lesson in the dust. The world keeps spinning, but Marcus knows that karma always has a way of making things right.